Hello, my friends. Give me 1 second. I am waiting for StreamYard to hook up into my Facebook group. I see that is happening so that we can go live. Hello, my friends on LinkedIn and YouTube. And I just want to double check my tech and make sure because I've got people in my group that want to see the live. I want to make sure we're there. Yep, I see us. Awesome. All right. Yay. The tech is working. I love it. Happy Friday Eve day to everybody. I've got all the tech hooked up, LinkedIn, YouTube, and all the awesome members in my Facebook group. YouTubers, hit the subscribe button so you never miss one of my live weekly trainings. And LinkedIners, hit the bell next to my name on my profile so we can stay connected. I have my friend Wendy Babcock here as our guest expert for today. And you're going to love this because she is going to drop the knowledge on storytelling and how it can help us up-level our brand, up-level our credibility, and build those genuine connections that, I love to talk about, the ones that lead to business growth. But first, just in case this is the first time we've ever met, I want to introduce myself. I am Tracy Beavers. I'm an award-winning business and sales coach with over 20 years of experience in marketing, sales, and business growth. And about 7 years ago, I became completely, entirely fed up with my corporate career, which I never thought would happen. And I hatched a plan to fully exit. And I want to share with you that once I did, back in my second full year of business as a business coach, my business boomed. And I busted through my goal of going over 6 figures in income in a year. And I haven't looked back. And I don't share that with you to brag on myself. I share that with you because I want you to know if you have a dream in your heart and you're stuck in a job you don't want to be in anymore, you can do this. Or maybe you've already left your job and you are building as a solopreneur. You can do this. If I can do it, you can too. You can build a business just like me. I teach all organic visibility and list growth strategies, and I've coached hundreds of entrepreneurs just like you to get visible and grow your email lists. And the strategies I teach get your list growth happening automatically every day in the background of your business. All right, my friends, I want you to pop your questions and comments into the chat for Wendy and I. We are happy to answer those at the end. And if you're watching on replay and you have a question, go ahead and throw it in the comments. I will pull Wendy in to get us an answer, and we would love to help you out. Today's topic: the power of story, boosting your business, your stage presence, and your connections. Wendy Babcock is my friend. We met just a few months ago. She is an international and TEDx speaker. She's an author. She's a paid stage speaker coach, dedicated to helping entrepreneurs amplify their voices so they can get on more stages and get paid to do it. And she has over 7 years of experience being on paid stages. She has guided clients like you and I to secure substantial speaking fees. I love the sound of that, and elevate their professional profiles. She's the creator of When Stories. I was lucky enough to be interviewed for When Stories podcast, and it utilizes When Stories is a new offer from Wendy, but it's really exciting. There's a branded stage you can be on, a book you can be a part of, and a podcast, all to enhance what you're doing as a solopreneur. Fun fact about Wendy, I love to share a fun fact. You guys are going to love this one. This is the first one of its kind we've ever had. Wendy is a lyricist, y'all, and she's written over 100 songs, including the theme song to her event, Warrior Unchained, as well as the When Stories theme song. She won, hold on, wait a minute. She won in 2006 VH1 Song of the Year Songwriting Contest. And she was judged by Steven Tyler and Nora Jones. She's got songs out there on major record labels. Wendy, welcome in. I'm so glad you're here. How much fun have you had doing everything you've done for the last 7 years?
It's been a crazy whirlwind, especially because I never sought out to be a speaker. So it's kind of crazy that this is the arena I ended up in. So it's been pretty wild ride.
So how, real quick, do you want to share with everybody, how did it happen? Did you get roped into it? Did you lose a bet?
It feels like it sometimes. It was a fluke, honestly. I worked in a hospital for 20 years.
Yeah.
And I was in a cubicle. I barely talked to anybody. Speaking wasn't even on my radar.
Wow.
And here's the power of books. So I was listening to an audio book by Pam Grout, and she mentioned a movement called the Complaint Free World. And I was just at a point in my life where I was trying to push away all the negativity out of my
Yeah.
life, trying to be more
Yeah.
positive. And I thought, this is brilliant. What's more negative that we do than complain? So I just started researching the movement. It was created by a man named Will Bowen, and call it fate. I don't really know, or that
Yeah.
moment that aha moment. And went to Facebook and looked up Will Bowen's profile to follow him. And his first post was, "Hey, I'm looking for 10 people to share this movement. I'll train you to get on stages and speak about this and get the message out." And he'd already
Wow.
been on Oprah and People magazine around the world, and barely anyone knew about it. I
Wow.
don't know why I applied. People ask me, "Well, oh my gosh, why did you apply for that?" I'm like, "I have no
Yeah.
idea." I remember, like, doing the email and hitting send and, like,
Uh-huh.
instant panic attack, like, "What am I
What?
doing?" But
Right.
part of me was like, "They're not gonna pick me anyway, so it's fine." And then they picked me.
And then I love it. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. And so that got you on stages and got you started?
Yeah, he basically taught me everything I needed to know to get on stages using his message. So I was facilitating the complaint-free trainings, but I was taught to plug in my own stories, thus the storytelling that I
Ah.
eventually got into, because that was my favorite part of being on stage, was incorporating my stories for each audience that I spoke to.
Yeah. Wow. I
Yeah.
th I love that. That is a great background story. I think
Mhm.
that's so cool. We just never know
Yeah.
where the next decision is gonna take us.
You don't
So,
know.
let's dive into storytelling.
Sure.
Great segue. Why should we care about it as business owners? Why is it so important, when it comes to things like trying to build those connections? Because I'm all about building genuine connections through
Yeah.
networking and virtually and in person and all that, but why is it so important in that aspect?
The first thing that comes to mind when you were saying that is things like we're so used to getting bombarded with, like, the dirty DM, which is not, it's the sales pitch, right?
Yes,
People are pitching you left and right. They
yes,
know nothing about you. We know nothing about them.
right,
We get into this mindset of speaking business all the time.
right,
What I have found in, when I started networking back in 2018, I had never networked before. I
yeah,
found that it was people's stories that would really, I would relate with them. And that's when we
yeah,
had those moments like, oh my God, me too. And you
yeah,
get so excited to talk to one another. It becomes
mhm,
a seamless collaboration, a seamless referral partner,
mhm,
seamless maybe client coaching relationship, because you guys
mhm,
get each other. And
right,
that can only come through storytelling
mhm.
and being authentic and relatable without pitching, basically.
Yeah, you're so right. Those cold DMs just break
Yeah,
my heart.
they
I don't
do.
know who is teaching that strategy, but I wanna find them, beat them with a wet
Yeah.
noodle, and tell them to cut it out because
Yep.
it doesn't work. There's no way it can
Yeah.
work.
Even if
Yeah,
they started with, "Hey, girl," I'm still not interested.
no, the worst
"Hey,
one is when
girl."
they call me queen. "Hey, queen." I'm like, "Nope, nope,
Yeah.
we're
You don't
done
know me.
here.
Right.
We're
Right.
done here."
And we wanna
Okay,
work with
so
Yeah, go ahead.
no, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Oh,
Yeah,
I was gonna and we wanna work with people we know, like, and trust. So when
yes,
somebody, like you just said, comes in and does the "Hey, queen," they don't know me. They don't know if that's something I identify with or if I even like being called. So there's a big disconnect. So people are like, "Oh, that's icky."
yeah, it is. Yeah, you're right. They don't know me at all, and
Mhm.
to assume that I would be okay with that opener is,
Right.
presumptuous, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, when we are on stage, let's talk about that because there
Yeah.
are people in my audience, myself included.
Mhm.
I have not spoken on a stage since I left corporate because primarily because of the pandemic and building this
Right.
virtual business. I do have a speaking engagement coming up in about 2 weeks.
Okay.
First time back on a stage in a long time. Little nervous about it, quite frankly, because I haven't
Mm.
been on a stage in a long time. But
Right.
for those of us that really want to do this and get paid to do it, but also do it really well, where people aren't just checking their watches or getting up to go get another cup of coffee or going to the ladies' room. They are engaged and they're captivated. So how do we use storytelling when I'm doing things like this live video, when I'm on a podcast, when I'm on a stage?
Yeah. And you actually already did it. When you introduced yourself, you told your backstory. You told your origin story.
Nice.
So this is something that we do naturally when we're just talking to people.
Mhm.
Even when we're not on stage, we're natural storytellers. We always
Okay.
things pop up, you're like, "Oh, yeah, that's right. Remember when my uncle did this?" Or, when I was going through my divorce, this is what I
Mhm.
experienced too. So
Yeah.
bringing that on a stage really helps your audience relate to you because people don't lean in for facts and figures and graphs and charts, even if they need it.
Yeah.
They lean in for the stories that you connect to those things. So
Mhm.
stories are actually 22 times more memorable than facts and figures alone. So when you combine those things, right,
Yeah.
you have
Yep.
to combine them. Um, and the story makes you relatable. It
Mhm.
when you stand on a stage, people have this idea that somehow like you're more important somehow, right? But you're just
Yeah.
a person just like the audience. So
Right.
if you don't have storytelling to kind of give them that idea that no, I'm the same as you. I'm just a human being like you and I've gone through these things, you
Right.
know, it makes it relatable. People will trust you more if you use
Right.
storytelling and they
Mhm.
don't gloss over. Like if you're just teaching, and I know some really great teachers on
Right.
stages who, but they need more storytelling because you can see the audience kind of glazing over, even if it's
Yeah.
stuff that they need to know.
Yeah.
So I like to teach, when you teach something, give a story to
Mhm.
showcase. And it doesn't have to be a personal, deep, traumatic story. It can be a
Mhm.
client testimonial. It could be, just like you said, your origin story, your transformational story in your business. It doesn't have to
Right.
be, people think storytelling has to be like your deepest, darkest secrets and what happened to
Right.
you in your childhood. It doesn't
Yeah.
have, yeah, I mean, those are powerful, but it
Right.
doesn't have to be that.
Well, and I think, for me, when I didn't realize that I just told a story until you said that I did,
Yeah.
and I think where I am kind of having a block about it is, and if you'd asked me, "Do you use stories when you go live and stuff like that?" I would have said, "No, I don't do
Hmm.
that." Because what I'm thinking in my head is, it can't be something as simple as introducing myself and telling my backstory. It has to be something like you just said, "It was a cold and rainy night, and I was alone in the wilderness without," you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, I've gotta
Yeah.
tell this big thing. So it doesn't have to be like that, right?
Exactly, and that's what's great. So, like, we think storytelling, especially for stages, of course, right? It
Mhm.
can just be how it communicates what you're teaching. So, like, for
Okay.
complaint free, I teach things like we complain for 5 different reasons. One reason is, to get attention. We complain just to get attention. It's small talk. Small talk is complaining usually for
Yeah.
attention because
Yeah.
we do things like maybe think of yourself in an elevator, right? And
Mhm.
you're the only one in there. Someone steps on with you. It's a complete stranger, and you stand there, and it feels awkward and uncomfortable
Yeah.
until somebody complains, like, "Oh God, this weather is terrible lately," or "Oh my gosh, the Packers lost again," or "Gosh, this elevator takes forever." Right? I mean,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
so all
That's
I'm
so
doing is
funny.
right. So it's not some deep dramatic story, right? It's just
Right.
showcasing what I'm teaching, and people are like, "Oh, yeah, that's right. I do that
Uh-huh.
all the time." And that's all it is.
Interesting. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. I think you just made it really, really simple for me that I don't have to, make it this big
Right.
thing.
Yeah,
Um,
it does not
that
have to be.
Yeah, okay, that takes the pressure off for sure. So, can
Good.
you tell us a couple of examples when, storytelling made a massive difference in your career or for somebody that you work with? Because you work with people like me who wanna be better
Right.
speakers, and so tell us a couple of stories.
Awesome. Well, it's interesting. I love working with people who, are like you, who maybe think, "Oh, it's gotta be some deep story."
Yeah,
I like to let people just talk when I'm on a call with them.
uh-huh,
Because I think one of my gifts is pulling out the story.
okay,
So for example, with One Stories, right? We're kicking off our very first One Stories coming up, next month. And we have 6 weeks of coaching. And so in talking to all of the speakers, there's 15 speakers. There was one in particular, I just love her. Her story is surrounding her father passing away when she was in her 20s. And
wow,
she talked about how close she was at that moment with him and having to sit down and write his obituary,
oh,
thinking, "How can I put everything on this one page of everything he's done and what he means to me?"
yeah,
And so she was going on that path of that, and then maybe a couple sessions later, she also talked about how she said, "Growing up, I didn't know him that well." And so
in
she felt like she was just getting close to him at the end of his life, basically,
yeah,
so she kinda gave that bit. And we were talking about with One Stories, there's always the now what. After they give the talk, this is about
mhm,
visibility, now what, right? And so what she does is she builds speaker websites or
mhm,
websites specifically for speakers. And so
Okay.
we're tying it all together, and she's like, "I just don't know where it ties." I'm like, "Think about this, though. You didn't know your father growing up, and it was so important for you to make sure people knew him in that obituary. That's
Yeah.
what you do for a living. You make sure people know who's on stage. Like, you're building this website around identifying exactly who this person is. You're building their brand
Yes.
on their website." So I'm
Right.
like, "You're doing the thing, that pivotal moment in your life is now
Mhm.
building, you're helping, that's what you do for a living." And generally that's true. When we dig a little deeper
Interesting.
into our lives, we're
Yeah.
doing things that serve maybe an old version of us.
Interesting. Oh
Yeah.
my goodness. Do you have any other examples? I love that.
Yeah, let me think. I should have came more prepared for this, but,
Oh, you're
I think
fine.
for I only recently made the connection in my own life that I've been a songwriter, lyricist since I was 11, right? So that's why I had so many songs that
Amazing.
I've written and things, right?
Yeah.
I never connected speaking and songwriting as the storytelling until
Wow.
probably 6 months ago, where I just kinda had that. I'm like, "Oh, duh, like, I've been storytelling since," because
Mhm.
that's what I've done.
Yeah.
I grew up in childhood abuse to domestic abuse, and so
Yeah.
songwriting and poetry writing was how I was able to basically speak when I was silent in my outward life, because I was kinda hiding from everything in my life, and so
Yeah.
I've always felt like I was kept silent, and the
Right.
writing was how I could express myself, and I had
Yeah.
never connected those 2 until I started digging more into my love of storytelling. I'm like, "Well, duh, I've been
Mhm.
doing this since I was 11 years old,"
Yes.
you know?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah. Oh, that's really cool. That's a
yeah,
cool revelation to come to for sure.
it
So,
yeah,
okay. So, for anybody listening, myself included, what advice would you give to us um, when we struggle with sharing a personal story in a business setting? Because it's like, there's a time and place for everything.
right,
And so this is a good example. So, like, I teach people how to use their Facebook personal profile for business
right.
and personal at the same time. And a lot of people are hesitant to do it. So I could also see why they would say, I'm in a business setting. Do I
Yeah.
need to be talking about my divorce? Do I need to be talking about my child that has ADHD? Do I need to be like, how personal do you like? How do we get over that?
So, and that's a very personal level of how much we're gonna share, and you can do it on all of those different levels. But I
Mhm.
I feel like it's really important to bring in some of your personal life. It doesn't have to be the deep, dark things, right? Unless you're comfortable
Mhm.
sharing that. It can be your day to day. So, like, for example, I'm very open. I share everything in my life that's going on, right?
I do. Yeah.
But that's not for everybody.
Right.
You can share day-to-day things that happen. So, like, for example, one a funny story that happened to us is we have 2 cats, and one of our cats brought in a live chipmunk into our house. And we also have 2 dogs. So now we have 4 animals chasing this poor chipmunk all over the house. It was just so funny. I went to social media and I shared it. People thought it was hilarious.
It is
But
hilarious.
it's just a simple story, but also, like, the way I described it, I'm like, I was painting them a picture of what happened. So I'm like, "Okay,
Yeah.
this chipmunk gets loose in our house. All 4 animals are trying to catch it. My husband's got these big work gloves on trying to catch this poor little chipmunk. I'm literally on the couch standing, screaming like a little girl, 'Catch it!'" So I'm like, "What does the story tell you? I'm
Oh,
not good
God.
in an emergency for one." Right? My
I'm not
husband has
calling you. I'm not calling you if there's a chipmunk loose in my
Yeah.
house.
Right, and but it also shows kind of my sense of humor about it.
Yeah. Right.
It shows that my husband's kind of my savior in
Yeah.
desperate situations,
Right.
but also it shows our love of animals, right? So
Yeah.
we got the poor little chipmunk out of the house alive and intact,
Oh,
right?
good. Okay.
So, and people maybe aren't thinking that far into the story, but if they were, those things pop out of a story when you tell something as simple as that. Like, this
Mhm.
is what happened today.
Yeah.
And you could do something as silly as go to ChatGPT, and here's where I tell people this is a crazy tip. So go to ChatGPT, say this crazy story happened to me about this chipmunk. How can I tie this to my business and what I do? Right? I'm a speaker coach. How can I
Okay.
tie this to my business and how can I create copy around this? And it gave me some ideas like saying something to speakers. You might feel like a chipmunk that's running around the house hiding from all these animals when you're trying to get leads for speaking gigs. You feel like you're
Uh-huh.
just trying all of these different spaces, but you can't seem to get out of that rut. So it
Mhm.
kind of gave me these ideas around it. So that
That's
brings the business
brilliant.
into it.
Yeah.
So
That that's a
yeah,
brilliant tip to go and use everybody's favorite unpaid employee, ChatGPT. I
right.
what did we
Right.
do before we had an AI tool? Like,
I don't even know.
did we just sit and stare at the blank computer screen? Because I think that's what I was doing.
Yeah, I think so, we really did. And just to
Yeah.
kind of go off of what I'm talking about, so also, we don't wanna create too much of a highlight reel either, because that also comes out across as inauthentic, like, "My life is glorious and wonderful." So, bringing in
Yeah.
some of the things, like, some of the struggles maybe that we're having in business. We don't have to go
Mhm.
into, like, I'm on the verge of, bankruptcy, but talking about maybe, prices are up and I'm really struggling with XYZ, right?
Yeah.
You don't have to go too to the negative. Speaking about your divorce, fine if there's lessons in it, but you don't
Right.
wanna also air out too much dirty laundry where it turns people away. There is a fine
True.
line with how
Yeah.
much you share. There
Yeah.
there really is a fine line,
Mhm. Yeah.
you know?
I agree completely because I've been in front of oversharers before, and I'm like,
Mhm.
I start to feel awkward and weird. Like,
Yeah,
"Ooh, okay, that was more than I needed to know about
yeah,
you today,
yes,
right here,
and that's what happens,
when we're just
right?
standing in line at Starbucks."
Yeah, yep. So my tip then is if you're gonna share something deeply personal, make sure there's a
Mhm.
lesson in it, so you're teaching out of that dark so it gives them a lesson to hang on to, so they're not focusing on that negative thing and feeling
Yeah.
like they've just been traumatized over your things that you're
Mhm.
experiencing.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good tip too. That's a
Yeah,
great tip. So I'm looking to see if there's any questions from the audience. Give me one second.
sure.
People are loving this. Yep, they agree. They're like that. Talking about keeping it simple was
Yeah,
really beneficial for everybody.
good.
Wendy, you have something free for us. Jill is going to pop it into the link to the chat for everybody to grab that. You want to tell them about the 100 prompts that you have for them?
So this is great for people like your audience who are a little nervous about storytelling. And
Mhm.
how do we incorporate storytelling into so these are 100 prompts to kind of get those creative juices flowing. So these are just 100 prompts. So on a day when you're stuck with content creation for social media, if you're going to be
Mhm.
on the stage and you're like, "Oh, I need some stories." These are 100 prompts that are just going to help you come up with more stories. And I would say it
Mhm.
would be a great idea even to keep a journal and go
Okay.
through all 100 prompts, like, slowly and come up with as many stories for each one of those prompts as you can and create kind of that bank, right, of stories so that when you are stuck, you can go back to that journal or that notebook, and now you've got all of these stories that
Yeah.
you've already kind of brainstormed.
Okay. And then from your tip from earlier, we could take those ideas and that
Yeah,
story and put it into ChatGPT and
yeah,
say, okay, how can I relate this back to business?
yes.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, and you
brilliant.
can and it's great because the further away really from even what, your business is of the
Mm.
story, it still makes those connections. It's brilliant. So,
Yeah,
I mean, you can have it like a story about a chipmunk and compare it to public speaking, and it makes that connection, which is great.
right, right. Oh my gosh, I love it. Everybody is saying how fantastic this has
Oh,
been in the chat, Wendy. Thank you so, so much. Any last tips or advice? Um, okay, let me ask you this. Do you have a
mhm,
quick tip? Because I know you've got a call here in a few minutes. Do you have a
sure.
quick tip for somebody who is trying to overcome their fear of public speaking?
Ooh, for overcoming. Um Part of it, honestly, is just getting up and doing it. The only
Practice?
really way to tackle that fear is to do it, and that can be in,
Mhm.
small doses. Do a
Okay.
Facebook Live,
Mhm.
right? Get on a
Mhm.
podcast where somebody's interviewing you to help
Mhm.
kinda shake out some of those nerves. I mean, just baby
Mhm.
step is all you need to do.
Mhm. Yeah. So the practice really. Yeah,
Yeah,
because
practice.
that's what I tell my clients and students too is,
Mhm.
you know, my assistant, Jill, I don't remember how long ago this was. It must have been sometime last year. She stumbled across some of my very first lives that I
Yeah,
did where before I had hired her and everything when I was just getting going. And I've always said, don't go back and watch those because they're terrible. I am so boring. I am so trying to be so anchor woman perfect.
right?
And she told me, she goes, "You're not kidding. Those are the worst." And I was like, right? They're terrible.
Yeah,
But the
right.
more I did it, I'll never forget this. I was a couple of months in and I did a live and I had loosened up to what
Yeah,
I do now, which is be myself, talk with
yeah,
my hands, make up words, hit my microphone when I'm flailing my hands around. And I'll
yeah.
never forget my friends who know me well DM'd me and they said, "That is the best. I don't know what you had in your coffee this morning. That is the best live you've ever
Yeah.
done because you were you. You were Tracy Beavers and your personality shine through. But I didn't get to that point right
Right.
out of the gate. I had to practice.
And that's exactly what it is. And so real quick, I'll share during the
Yeah,
pandemic, I had gotten on TikTok because my daughters, I have 2 adult daughters that loved TikTok. I'm like, "Oh,
right,
I'll get on here," right? So I started scrolling. I'm like, I thought I'm gonna make a TikTok because it was separate from like I live on Facebook normally, right? So I'm not a
uh,
Facebook person.
yeah,
I wasn't showing up fully as myself on Facebook at that point. I was trying to be Miss Business and show up in a certain way.
right.
Then when I got brave and shared one of my goofy TikToks, I was so afraid people were gonna be like, "Oh, she's weird." Right? So I really thought that. I'm like, "People are gonna think I'm weird," but it did exactly the opposite. People were like, "Oh,
Yes,
wow, you're really funny." Like, "Oh my,
yeah.
I love that you're addicted to marshmallows," because that's what my first videos were about.
That
And
is funny. Are you
it's
really
so
addicted to marshmallows?
it's terrible.
That
Seriously, like,
is so funny. Oh my
yeah.
god.
In fact, I just bought so real quick on the marshmallows, there's a cafe in Chicago, it's called XO Marshmallow Cafe, and they have a advent calendar they put out every year around for
Mhm.
Christmas. I go live every night in December and show you which the flavor of the marshmallow is, and this has been going on for, like, 4 years. It's been
That
great.
is so funny. Oh
Yeah.
my stars. Okay, everybody, marshmallows for Wendy. Get her
Yep,
address. They'll start
yep,
showing up at your house. That
and
is
I'm a snob.
hysterical.
They gotta be the good marshmallows. There can't be no knockoff brands or I will disown you. We are no longer friends if you send me anything other than Kraft,
No cheap marshmallows.
right?
That's a mantra for life. I love it.
Right.
Oh my gosh, this has been so much fun. Real quick, I want to share an awesome freebie that I've got for everybody too. Um, we created a quiz this summer. I'm so excited about it. I've been wanting to do it for a while. It's called Unlock Your Secret to Stand Out and Become Unforgettable Online. So I'm going to teach you how to be unforgettable online. Wendy just taught us how to be unforgettable in person and on stage. So go to tracybeavers.com/quiz. Take the quiz. When you get your results, I want you to DM me or email me and tell me what you got. Wendy, thank you so much again. I've loved this, and I know based on the comments I'm seeing in the chat, everybody else did too. My friends, I want you to be here live with me every Thursday at 11:30 Central. Put it on your calendar, set a phone alarm. And remember, don't try to go it alone. Being an entrepreneur is freaking hard. Some days, you hear me say this every single week. Some days, everybody wants to buy what you're selling, and other days, nobody can remember your name. And if you think you're alone, you are absolutely not. It is a roller coaster, and we all need to stick together. So join a community of support where people know what you're doing and can cheer you on. Have a great balance of the week and weekend. And remember, when one of us rises, we all rise. All right. Thanks again, Wendy.
Thank you.